What's up, jet ski fans? Welcome to another Joel Arsenault YouTube video. Thanks for hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. The other day I filmed a teardown video of my Kawasaki X2 with the 1100 triple swap in it to see how much damage had occurred from my trip to the Jet Ski Brothers. Not only did I have some broken grounds and an engine failure, but I was most curious about how much damage the salt water did. Those of you who follow my channel will know that the previous year I had quite a bit of damage on my wiring and switches and a whole bunch of other stuff, battery. And I was really curious to see, after sitting for a few weeks slash maybe over a month, I was curious to see just how much damage had occurred from this trip because of salt water. So I did a full engine teardown, and as part of that I ended up finding out that there was some crunchiness inside of my starter motor. So I took my starter motor apart, and this is actually not a teardown video of my X2. It is a tip that I thought of while getting ready to reassemble my starter motor. I didn't have time to edit the other video, and I thought I would release this just to give you guys a little something and to try to keep my channel alive. BJ's actually coming over shortly. We're going to start into a project. The video of that will be released on my Lowered Expectations channel. I have been fairly busy over there, and I will be busy for the next couple of weeks because I've got a couple commitments with Beaver. They're having a Black Friday sale. And so between November 13th and 27th, I've got 3 different videos that I need to release basically for them, for me, on that channel. Anyway, if you're interested, feel free to go check that out. Let's get into it. I will see you guys at the end. I'm working on my Kawasaki ZXi 1100 starter motor. I took this apart and cleaned it out because it got some water in it and it was feeling a little crunchy. I'm getting ready to put it back together, and I thought of a little tip to share with you guys that will probably be very helpful. Now, this starter motor is used on a whole bunch of different Kawasaki jet skis as well as other brands. Even if you don't have this model or this exact starter motor, or if you don't have a starter motor at all, if it is a DC brushed motor, so if it is a brushed motor with these little brushes, some will have 2, some will have 4, then this trick will probably work for you. So we'll start off by talking about what the problem is. When you took your starter motor apart, you probably noticed that the rotating assembly is stuck in there with quite a bit of magnetic force. So you had to actually pull this out. When you go to put this back together, if you just allow it to slide back in aggressively, it could hit the brushes. In this case, it can hit the brushes and actually break this plate off. There is a connector that goes from this stud here where you connect your positive wire to the brushes, and it can break that plate off. The other thing is, even if it doesn't break the plate off, it can hit the brushes and damage the brushes. And they are spring loaded. You can see when I push on it, it's resisting with quite a bit of force. And so the idea is you need to get these brushes out over this diameter here. This is where the brushes make contact. So when I go to slide this back in there, this surface is just going to smack against the brushes, and that's not going to be any good. So there are a couple of different ways that you can go about doing this, but the best way that I've found with this particular setup is to get a little pick a screwdriver. Now, some of these springs will actually be like hairpin springs, so it's like a round, how do I say? The diameter of the spring is round, like a typical spring. This is a leaf kind of type spring, and if you try to slide it up with, sorry, I should say with the hair type springs, you can lift them up over this body and sometimes jam it in place, or sometimes just remove the spring and put it on afterwards. If you can do that, fantastic. But with these, as you guys probably saw there, if I try to lift this up and put it on the edge, it won't stay there. It wants to pop back down because the flat spring is pulling it down. So what you do is grab a little pick like this and actually slide the spring up. You don't have to have a 90-degree pick, of course, but slide the spring up on the pin. You don't want to pop it off, because if you pop it off, then you're going to have to get it back on, and that can be a pain in the butt. It's not always bad, but it can be a pain. Once you've got it slid up, you can then take that spring and catch it on the end, and you can see now it's staying there hanging over the end. Do that with how many ever springs you have. Some motors will have 2, some motors will have 4, but you slide them up on that pin, and then once again you lift it over. This is tricky, of course, because I'm trying to get the camera shot, so I'm doing it in a kind of an awkward way for myself, so I don't suggest doing it with a camera running. We'll do this last one, then we'll come back once I've got all 4 of them, just to make this video a little bit shorter. I've pushed that up. Now I can hook the spring, and I've got it over the end, just like that. Okay, now I've got all of the springs hooked over the ends so they're not forcing the brushes out. So now what I can do is put all my brushes in place and push them all the way back, seat them all the way back. Oops. I touched that spring and it popped in a little bit, so we'll put it back. All right. If I went and grabbed a pair of needle nose pliers, this would be way easier, but I'm going to struggle through and show you guys, yeah, my struggles. Okay, so now all the brushes are out of the way. The springs aren't pushing them in, so I can slide the rotating assembly into place, just like that. And now we can see we don't have any problem with the contact surface making contact with the brushes and knocking anything out of place. So now I can actually put my end cap on, my end cover on. We actually want to make sure we get our seal put in place first. I am going to be cleaning this up and putting some glue on it, but for the video demonstration, I will just put that old seal back in place. It did leak already, so I know that I need to seal it up. If I don't, it's just going to happen all over again. So this seal on the back is already in place. We make sure that we've got all our washers on this cover. I didn't show you guys, but on this cover, we've got a little anti-rotation plate that sits into the cap, and then we've got a fiber washer and a metal washer. The metal washer actually goes first, then the fiber. And then on the back side we have some more washers. These are to space it so that it doesn't have a lot of end play. And now that we've got this together this far, we can release the springs. So we'll just push down on the springs, and now we have pressure on that brush. Do the same thing on all 4 of them. Your motor might only have 2. And the last one. There we have it. Now the brushes have the spring tension on them, and I didn't have to deal with that spring tension while I was working on the motor. These caps are almost always indexed in some way with the housing, so you want to look around for a notch or some sort of indication to figure out how they go. This one here has an alignment mark there that lines up with, I believe there is an alignment mark on the case right here. So we probably have another alignment mark on this. There we go. An alignment mark there. So we will align all of these marks before we put it back together. Let's see, that and that. And now, if we've got everything right, and we don't, quite obviously, All right, we've got everything lined up. We can now drop our bolts in place, tighten them back up, and our starter motor is reassembled. One last tip that I'll share with you guys that I learned the hard way. It actually took me a couple of times screwing up before I remembered to do this correctly. And that is to absolutely not try to remove the brush plate or knock it off in any way. And that is because the stud that holds the positive cable on holds a connector on that goes to the brushes. It's made out of brass. It's fairly brittle and it will absolutely break if you pull the plate off. Ask me how I know. Anyway, that is going to do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope to have some more exciting content coming up in the future, but this is what I had for you guys today. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.